I almost didn't answer the message. It came from a number I didn't recognize, at 11 at night, 3 words long. We need to talk. If you've been with me since the beginning, you already know how much damage a message like that used to do to me. So my first instinct was to close my phone and pretend I hadn't seen it. But something about it sat wrong in my chest. The way a held breath does right before you finally let it out. So I opened it. Who is this? I typed back. The reply came almost instantly. It's Camille. I know you probably hate me. I understand if you do. But I found something you need to know, and I couldn't sit on it. Camille. I hadn't heard that name outside of my own head in over a year. She was the woman from part 2 of this story. The one who somehow knew my own wedding plans better than I did. The one whose existence unraveled the first thread of everything I thought I understood about my life. For a long time, she was the villain of this story in my mind. Faceless. Cruel. A woman who helped destroy something I'd spent years building. I stared at her message for a long time before I responded. I don't hate you. I finally wrote, surprising myself. But I don't understand why you're messaging me now. She asked to meet in person. Against every instinct I had left from the old version of myself. The one who used to avoid confrontation at any cost. I said yes. We met at a small coffee shop, neutral ground, the kind of place neither of us had any history in. She looked different than the version of her I'd built in my head. Smaller somehow. Tired around the eyes in a way that felt achingly familiar, because I recognized that exhaustion. I used to wear it myself. I need to tell you something first, she said before I'd even finished sitting down. I didn't know about you. Not for a long time. He told me you two had already ended things months before you actually had. I planned parts of a wedding I thought was mine to plan, for a relationship I thought was real and exclusive. I found out I was the other woman the same way you found out I existed. All at once. And too late to undo any of it. I sat there, quiet, feeling something shift that I hadn't expected to shift. For over a year, Camille had existed in my mind as a co-conspirator, someone who'd helped take my life apart on purpose. Hearing her say this out loud rearranged something. She hadn't been the villain of my story. She'd been living inside a version of the same lie, from a different angle, with a different set of scars. I believe you, I said, and I meant it. She nodded, and for a second neither of us said anything. Then her expression changed. The softness replaced by something sharper, more urgent. That's not actually why I asked you here, she said. I saw a photo. On your page. From a few weeks ago. My stomach tightened instantly. What photo? You at some event, standing next to a man in a navy jacket. Tall. Dark hair. You tagged the location but not him. I knew immediately who she meant. Elias. The man I'd very cautiously, very quietly let myself start getting to know over the last 2 months. Careful dinners. Slow texts. Nothing public, nothing declared, exactly because some old protective part of me still flinched at moving too fast toward anyone. How do you know him? I asked, my voice smaller than I wanted it to be. Camille exhaled, like she'd been holding this for longer than just the walk to the coffee shop. He's engaged. Has been for almost a year. I know because his fiancée works with a friend of mine. I saw your photo and I recognized him immediately, because I've seen pictures of the two of them together at her friend's events for months. I felt the floor of the conversation tilt underneath me. Not because I loved Elias. It hadn't gone that far, not even close. But because of what it meant. Because of the shape of it. Because I had sat across from him at quiet dinners slowly, carefully letting myself believe that maybe I could trust again. And the entire time, without knowing it, I had been standing at the exact edge of becoming the thing that broke me in the first place. I wanted you to hear it from someone who understands exactly what it feels like to find out too late, Camille said quietly. I didn't want that for you. Not after everything. I want to be honest about what I felt in that moment, because it wasn't just anger, and it wasn't just relief that I'd found out early enough that nothing had really happened yet. It was fear. A cold, specific fear that maybe I hadn't actually changed as much as I believed I had. That maybe, underneath the promotion, the savings account, the investments, the soft ivory robe I now wore like armor some mornings, I was still someone whose radar for this kind of thing simply didn't work. How did you not see it? I asked Camille. And the second the words left my mouth I regretted them, because I heard exactly how they sounded. Like an accusation. Like the same question people had probably asked her a year ago, about me. She didn't flinch. The same way you didn't see it the first time. He's good at this, Nini. Men like that don't announce themselves. They let you fill in the gaps with the best version of who you want them to be. She wrapped both hands around her coffee cup like she needed something to hold on to. I spent 3 months blaming myself before I understood that the blame was never mine to carry in the first place. Something about hearing her say that out loud, in almost the exact words I'd used in part 6, standing in my own kitchen a year earlier, made the whole thing feel less like a coincidence, and more like a pattern finally being interrupted on purpose. Why didn't you just message me and let it go? I asked her. You didn't owe me anything. You could have stayed out of it completely. She was quiet for a second. Because somebody should have done that for me. Nobody did. I found out the way you found out things. In pieces, too late to matter, from strangers who had no reason to care whether it hurt me or not. I didn't want that for you. Even after everything between us, I didn't want that for you. I left that coffee shop and drove straight home without turning on the radio. Without doing anything except gripping the steering wheel and thinking. That night, I didn't call Elias right away. I sat with it first, the way I've learned to sit with hard things instead of reacting to them immediately. I made tea I didn't drink. I sat on the floor of my living room instead of the couch, back against the wall, phone face down on the carpet beside me, like putting distance between myself, and the decision would somehow make it easier to think clearly. Part of me wanted to give him the benefit of the doubt. That part of me was loud and familiar, and I recognized its voice immediately. It was the same voice that had once made excuses for months while everyone around me quietly knew the truth. I sat with that voice for a while, not fighting it exactly, just noticing it, the way you'd notice an old uncomfortable habit resurfacing under stress. Then I thought about part 7, about the version of me who sat in a parking lot ashamed of a job title, who flinched every time someone asked what she did for work. I thought about part 8, about the folder, the promotion, the quiet discipline of building something entirely my own, 2 weeks at a time, with nobody watching or clapping. That version of me hadn't waited for permission to change her life. She just started quietly and kept going. And I realized something that mattered more than the fear. The old version of me might have stayed quiet, might have convinced herself she misunderstood, might have kept seeing him out of loneliness or momentum or fear of being alone again. This version of me picked up the phone. I know, I said the moment he answered, before he could even say hello properly. I know about your fiancé. There was a long silence on the other end. Long enough that it answered the question before he said a single word. It's complicated, he finally said, which is the same sentence people always reach for when the truth is actually very simple. No, I said, and my voice came out steadier than I expected. Steadier than it had any right to after the night I'd just had. It's not complicated. It's exactly as simple as it sounds. I'm not doing this. Not with you. Not with anyone who thinks I'm someone he can quietly slot into a life he's already building with someone else. I hung up before he could say anything else. And I sat there in my kitchen, in the same warm light where I'd once stood holding a spoon, feeling proof of my own progress for the first time. Except this time the proof wasn't a paycheck or a promotion. It was this. The speed at which I chose myself. The absence of hesitation. I texted Camille later that night. Thank you. I mean that. I know what it feels like to not have anyone tell you in time, she wrote back. I wasn't going to let that happen twice. Here's the part of this story I didn't expect, the twist underneath the twist. Camille wasn't the villain I'd spent a year imagining her as. She was a mirror. A version of what could have happened to me again, if someone hadn't cared enough to say something. And in warning me, she became something neither of us could have predicted a year ago. Not an enemy, but an ally, forged from the exact same fire that once threatened to burn us both down separately. I don't know yet what happens next with her, whether this becomes a real friendship or just this one crucial, unexpected moment where our stories intersected again for a reason. But I know this. The soft empire I've been building was never just about money, or promotions, or silk robes and warm kitchens. It was about becoming someone who can recognize a threat to her own peace quickly and choose herself without hesitation, every single time, no matter how good the disguise is. He didn't get another version of me to deceive. And that, more than any raise or any savings account, might be the clearest proof yet of exactly how far I've come. If this one shocked you the way it shocked me living through it, subscribe and stay close. Because if there's one thing I've learned writing this story for you, it's that the twists don't stop just because you think you've reached solid ground.